Watching other people's Pokemon games has always been one of my favorite ways to improve. But sometimes it can feel a little slow paced, with the majority of each game being fairly repetitive. So, in today's video, I'm going to be going over some Pokemon puzzles depicting interesting board states that I've come across in the past few weeks, and hopefully board states that can serve as a learning opportunity for you guys. So, without further ado, let's get into the first puzzle. Our first board state today comes from the Charlotte Regional Championships, where I was playing Mew VMAX against Giratina, and I came across this position where I had Boston, my opponent's only Giratina V, and used all of my Fusion Strike systems. Now, originally, my plan was to Techno Blast for this for a knockout, but I did not find a power tablet. So, in this position, with 4 Seal Stone active and your opponent having 9 cards in the Lost Zone and 9 cards in their hand, what would you do? In the game, my initial instinct was to force Seal Stone for the Power Tablet or Choice Belt in order to find the knockout and remove my opponent's only Giratina V-Star from play. However, there is a massive problem with this play, which is that you flip your V-Star and open yourself up to Path Roxanne. So in the game, that's what I did. I used 4 Seal Stone, I got Choice Belt, and my opponent punished me very quickly with Counter Catcher on my Genesect, Sableye, and Roxanne Path, at which point I dead drew for multiple turns and my opponent was able to make an absurd comeback. So what I think is much better in this position is to just simply use Max Miracle for 110. I think you are already so far ahead in this position that there's no need to risk flipping your V-Star marker. Instead, just punch for some damage, and then on your next turn, you can knock out this Giratina and still have your Seal Stone up in order to get around that Roxanne. This next board state I have for you guys comes from one of my local league challenges where I was playing Gardevoir against Charizard. Now, in this puzzle, I'm going to be proposing a situation to you as the Charizard player. So, as the Charizard player, your Gardevoir opponent set up a 6 energy reversal Arcana in order to knock out your Charizard EX. And as their last action of their turn, they thought about it for a long time and then they benched a Zacian. So in this position, I want to ask you, what do you attack with? What supporter do you play? And what do you knock out? So your first thought when you look at this board might be that you can knock out the Gardevoir EX and the Zacian in the next 2 turns to win the game. However, I think when your opponent benches the Zacian as the last action of their turn, they are screaming to you that they have a way around this 2 prize line, most likely a Professor Turo in their hand. So if you said you would boss in the Gardevoir EX, unfortunately, your opponent had the Turo and picked up the Zacian in order to put themselves to a all 1 prize board state and set themselves up to win the prize trade. Now, the best option here is to actually just attack with Charmeleon and play Iono, put that 9 or 10 card hand your Gardevoir opponent has on the bottom of the deck, and attack with a 1 prizer. If your opponent whiffs a counter catcher or a boss's orders, you will jump ahead in the prize trade, and that is your best chance to win this game. Now, the third board state I'm going to talk about today comes from local legend Ferb Gronick. Now, we were just playing some games for fun of Guardy vs. C-Pow between rounds at locals, and I think this board shows why it's important to play to your outs. So in this board, I've gone down 4 prizes to an Iron Hands, and it's finally time for me to wake up and start attacking. Now, I've already drawn a bunch of cards and used Refinement. I have ample amounts of Psychic Energy in the discard pile, and I pretty much have any option I want available to me. So in this position, the 3 things that I really want to know are what supporter should you play, what Pokemon should you attack with, and what should you knock out. In this board, there are an overwhelming number of options to consider. We could knock out the Baxcalibur, we could knock out the Bibarel, and we could knock out the Iron Hands. Now, the attackers we could be looking to do this with are a Shining Arcana or potentially the Scream Tail. So let's explore the option of reversal killing the Iron Hands. So if you go Ultra Ball for a Shining Arcana, rare candy it out, and Iono knock out this Iron Hands, you actually put yourself in a fairly risky spot, as they'll be able to draw with the barrel up to 5 off the Iono, and potentially even hit something like a Cross Switcher on the Gardevoir EX that you would have to put down, and knock that out with C-Pow. Alternatively, they could draw Super Odd, put the Iron Hands back in, and win the game instantly like that. Or they could also just take 2 turns to win by knocking out 2 one-prize Pokemon. So I decided that I did not think that that was the best line. Now the next line I considered was using Shining Arcana and Counter Catcher to knock out the Bibarel. Now this felt pretty good because it would put no damage on the Shining Arcana and I would be immune to Iron Hands. However, this lets your opponent set up whatever they want, and the C-Pow would just come in, Shivery Chill, guarantee my opponent an energy to attack and an energy to draw 2 cards with Greninja, so I don't think that this is the best option either. Which brings me to the best option, which is to Counter Catcher in the Baxcalibur, use Screamtail, and Iono your opponent, and then kill the Bibarel. This puts them in a spot where if their 3 cards are bad, they are suddenly in a very, very rough spot. You can kill the Bibarel, and then the hope is that your opponent practically draw passes, and then you can Screamtail kill the Greninja, and if they draw pass one more time, you can go for the Arcana reversal, bring up the Iron Hands, knock it out, go to 2 prizes, and then kill the C-Pow on the next turn to win the game. And that is exactly how the game against Ferb played out. So when you are in these spots and you're in a rough spot, you're down 6-2, look for ways to attack your opponent's draw and put them in a spot where if they get a certain number of cards in a row that all suck, they can lose. Up next, we've got a C-Pow puzzle. Now, this puzzle doesn't come from any of my personal experiences, but I think it's got a pretty cool solution. In this position, you're playing C-Pow. Your Chien-Pao was just knocked out by Roaring Moon, and they've gone down to 2 prize cards. So if you use another C-Pow, you will be losing the prize trade. Now, there is one way to win this game. Can you find it? For those of you who thought of attacking with Radiant Greninja, you have found the correct line. Now, if you didn't see it, what I mean by this is you go in with Radiant Greninja here, you put 90 damage on the Mew EX and the Squawkabilly with no 2 prize Pokemon in play. Then your opponent presumably knocks out that Radiant Greninja, and on the following turn, assuming you can hit Super Rod and find that Radiant Greninja again with the energies, you can use Greninja again, knock out the Squawkabilly and the Mew EX, take a 4 prize turn, and win the game. Now, before I end the video, I want to give a thank you to Michael Long for creating PTCG Sim, which is the interface I used in this video. It's been incredibly helpful not only for making this video, but also for playtesting and coaching. Additionally, I'd like to give a thank you to GameGrid, the sponsor of the channel. You can check them out at GameGridSLC.com. They've got everything you need for Pokemon and anything card game related. They have singles and sealed product, so be sure to check them out if you're looking to buy any sealed product or singles. Other than that, that's all for today's video. I will see you guys in the next one.